Well, welcome. Let's get stitching. Today we're going to talk about Eleganza thread and the 3 weights of it, and we're going to get started with our project. So just a heads up, I guess this project is a stitch along, meaning that we're just going to fill our fat eighth with lots of stitched flowers. I don't really have a final project that I want to make this into, but at the end of this we will give you some ideas of what you could do with it. So I picked a few colors here in size 8, 5, and 3 Eleganza. So a little bit about Eleganza. It's a pearl cotton. It's made by Wonderful, and we chose all our colors for our line, and our color coding of our spools, like I talked about, is unique to our product and matching with our labels. So it comes in solid colors, soft variegates, and also quite contrasting variegates. So I've picked a palette that I'm going to work with today in purples and pinks and yellow and orange, because our flower of the day is an aster. So I have some that are solid and some that are variegates. The real cool thing about Eleganza, which was what I asked for right up front with Eleganza, was short variegations. So we have variegations at about 2 to 3 change in color, 2 to 3 inches, and it does really make for some really pretty stitching. I'm going to start with a size 5 in a minute, and we're going to set up with the Spoke Easy tool to do our Eleganza flower. So we have Spoke Easy tools, which are also our branded product, and these Spoke Easy tools come, there are 6 of them in the set, and they all have a different amount of spokes. So it will be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 spokes. As you can see, these are the spokes, and then you can make one as small as 1/4 of an inch up to 1.5 inches. So throughout these next few days, we're going to learn many different ways how to use these Spoke Easy tools. So today I'm going to work with a 9 spoke, and I'm going to go through all the steps so that you'll be familiar with what we're going to do going forward with other ones as well. So I'm going to use the 9 spoke, and I'm going to mark it with 9 spokes. Then I'm going to rotate it and mark it a second time. So I'll show you how to do that. The most successful way I have of marking it is using this 3-in-1 pencil. So this is a Soline. It has 3 different color chalks in it. I'm going to use the graphite. And the reason I use a 3-in-1 instead of a 1 lead one is that this end of it is longer, and so it can get into the Spoke Easy tool. The other thing is I do not mark with lines but with dots. So I'm going to make my flower right over here. So what I think I'll do first is just draw, and you can draw that a long stem all the way down to the base. So I've drawn my stem, and now I'm going to center. I've centered my stem coming in between the spokes right here. That's where it is. And I'm going to do the 9 spokes. So I'm going to make sure that my lead is fairly long, and I'm going to just put this right in the center, and with no pressure at all, I'm turning the pen to make a mark. So I'm going to mark at the largest, being the 1.5 inch circle, all the way around at the tip of all of these 9 spokes like this. All right, so I've done that. I'm now going to rotate this so that the spokes are now in the center of the 2 points that I have over here. So on these, I'm going to mark 1, 2, the 3rd one down right here. So I'm going to mark that on each one of these. There we go. So now I'm going to mark the 3rd one down. Okay, there's the last one. So here's my center point. you can see these 9 outside markings, and then there's ones in the center, 9 more that are offset from those. So I'm going to start by doing the 9 outside spokes. So I'm going to use a solid color, and I'm actually going to use a size 5. I'm going to just use a solid color. This is going to be for my spokes. So I've cut my length. So the end that comes off the spool is the end that you are always going to thread, and the other end is where you're going to knot. So I'm just going to show you how to do a quilter's knot. You're going to make a circle like this with your thread, and you're going to wrap 2 to 3 times around your thread, hold it and pull your needle up, and you will have a nice little knot at the end of your thread there. And that is the knot that I use every time I use a thread. So always thread from the end that comes off the spool, because then you are stitching with the twist in your thread, and put a quilter's knot in the end. I've come up from the center and I'm going to join the dots. And I normally just go slightly past my mark, just a thread pass so that it hides it. And I'm going to join the longer spokes, so the original 8 that or 9, sorry, that I stitched. I'm going to come back to the center, and I'm just going to work around joining my dots to make the 9 spokes, so you can see. All right, so you can see this is my last spoke, so I've kept them nice and taut. One other little tip is the knot. My knot is in the center, and that's where I really like to start. So just make sure that you don't stitch through the knot each time you do a spoke. So for the center, I'm going to use a size 3 Eleganza because I want it to look pretty chunky. So I'm going to use a tapestry needle. So I'm using the size 20 tapestry needle so that I can weave with the point. If you're not using a tapestry needle, you need to use the back of your needle. So I'm going to do a woven circle because I've got an uneven amount of spokes. So that is an under-over weave. So I'm going to go under-over, under-over, and I'm going to go all the way around. And I'm going to make sure that my weaving is snug in the center. And I'm going to do quite a few rounds. So you can see on the second round, this is opposite weave to the first row. So we're going to go. So that'll be good. So I'm going to take my thread over this last one here. Okay, so now I'm going to do 1 row of orange. So I'm going to bring up the orange thread, and I'm still going to continue with the woven, just going under over to give a little bit of orange on the outside here. So there's the center of my flower. So I've threaded up with a size 8 with a little 24 chenille needle, and now I'm going to couch each one of these spokes. And I like to use a little bit of contrast so that it adds another element to the flower. So I'm going to come up and I'm just going to couch little straight stitches, you know, about every scant, I guess. Alright, so I'm on the last spoke. You can see how pretty it looks with the variegated thread as you're couching, so using something a little bit contrasting. So I'll come back down the last spoke and then we'll pick up a new thread for a new stitch. So remember we did these little inner dots over here, so I'm going to use those for a fly stitch. What I'm going to do is do the V above the dot, and then come in with my tail to the edge of my orange over here. So I always do a fly stitch coming up on the left hand side, going over to the right hand side, and here I'm going to go just on the dot with the thread underneath the needle. That'll give a little fly, and I'm going to anchor it on the edge of the orange over here. So I'm going to do a fly stitch in the center of each one of these spokes like that.